Fujichrome Astia holds a special place for me. I got back into film photography mainly because I picked up my first Fujifilm digital camera 7 years ago and was curious about all the different film simulations on the camera. I had heard of Velvia before, but I hadn't shot any of it, nor any of the films like Provia, Velvia, Astia, or Acros. And I was particularly interested in shooting both Velvia and Astia because those two are my main go-to film simulations. I primarily use Velvia for golden hour and blue hour, and Astia for the rest of different lighting situations, and I especially love how it turns out for portraits. But I came back into analog photography well past the golden age of film stocks being available, so I've had to find many expired and out of production film stocks on eBay or trade them at film meetups. To date, I've shot 10 rolls of Fujichrome Astia 100, 3 rolls on 35mm and 7 on 120, and all 3 of the 35mm rolls actually turned out bad, and all 7 of the 120 rolls turned out good. So today I'm going to share with you how it looks on a light table, show my favorite photos from the scans, and do a couple of comparisons to other film stocks I've shot side by side on the Bronica SQ-AI. So let's dive in. This is the first roll of Fujichrome Astia that I shot on 120 film. I instantly fell in love with the baby blues, especially in the sky. I also really loved how the light hit the leaves of the trees. The second roll of Astia I shot was actually around the same couple of days in October on my Fuji GSW 690. I love this shot here. I then shot a roll of it in the summertime. Most of it I shot during the fall. This is probably my favorite shot right here of the clouds. June and July in Minnesota have a lot of thunderstorms and lightning storms and just is very moody. I just absolutely love the detail you see in the clouds here. I also think it looks really lovely during golden hour and blue hour. It's not as strong and intense as Velvia is during this time. Here's some more that I shot in the summer. Again, I love the blues you see here. The way the sky looks. I love the blue here. And I'll show you some side-by-sides of my scans between, I have some of Fuji NPS versus Fujichrome Astia of this entire set. Here's a set I shot in September of 2022, you can see. And I actually shot this set side by side with some Ektachrome. And I absolutely love, you see the different spots here of this. I loved this cloud. It looked like an anvil. And I caught it from a hill as well as the lake here. Here's a few more shots that I got during golden hour. This was actually in September of 22. And I really like the shots here on the water of the fishing. And I like some of these shots. I was trying to see which one I liked of golden hour at the lake. I think when you look at the scan, I think it was this one that turned out the best in my view. And this was my very last roll I shot of it. This was in October of 22. This one turned out really lovely. I love the bright blues here and the house and the trees here. I think I have some Kodak Ektar that I shot on here to compare as well. You can see how the reds, yellows, and blues like performed beautifully on this film. And I absolutely miss it. But I'm very thankful that I had a chance to shoot it. So now I'm going to take a closer look of the scans and do some comparisons. These are shots from my first roll of Astia taken on the Yashica Matte 124G. I loved how the blue sky and gray steel on the bridge looked. One thing I noticed is the blues and greens worked well with the warmer tones. It still feels warm, but much softer than the Kodak. I really liked how the red leaves went with the baby blue sky. I also noticed a lot of sharpness in the blades of grass. I think this film really shines during the autumn with all the various colors. This is one of my favorite shots. It feels like if childhood was a picture. This one was interesting in how it leaned into magenta during the golden hour. I like how Astia handled the reds, greens, and yellows. Adding those with blues on a sunny fall day worked well. I love shooting Astia on a sunny clear day with all the blue skies and water. I love this shot with the fisher on the pier and this woman reflecting in the lake. One thing I love about slide film is when you allow your shadows to become dark. It seems like this shot is one that Astia can really pull off. I feel like Ektachrome would have made the sky too dark blue and Velvia would have lost too much in the shadows. I think the glass buildings looked fantastic on Astia. I like how the buildings and sky centers your attention, and the shades of blue look very good. And once you zoom in to the building itself, there are so many different shades of blue. But I gotta say, my top favorite photos were capturing the dramatically lit skies. These clouds were so beautiful and epic, and I feel like Astia did a good job capturing that feeling, and how they were making everything feel minuscule in comparison. I also really liked how it captured all the variations of light and dark within the clouds, and the silhouette and shadows from the hill. Overall, I think it can give a lovely pastel at sunset. I also wanted to see how this film handled in golden hour and blue hour. I knew how Velvia could handle. The sun glowing over the lake felt warm, but not too overpowering. And when the sun had set further, all the shades of orange, pink, and purple came out. It was more saturated than the previous shot, but not as strong as Velvia. Now I'll get into comparing Astia to other film stocks, starting with Fujicolor NPS 160. I found that NPS in many ways was very similar to Astia, almost like it was the color negative version of the film. You can see that the Astia was a little more contrasty, but that's a given with slide film and its narrower dynamic range. I do like the shadows and how the light played in the Astia picture much better here. Both films looked great in daylight, but I prefer the Astia and how it pulls your attention to the mid and upper half of the image. As well as the blues on the buildings have more richness. Overall, I love the blue from Astia in this shot. It just feels like it has a lot more depth. I love the contrast and color saturation from Astia, although you can tell the sky is a little bit more blown out compared to the NPS. The flowers leaned more pink versus going purple for the NPS. These two shots are so similar, especially in the sky, that it's hard to tell any differences, but I do like the color from the boat and the water more on Astia. This is a similar story where the shots feel very similar, but I do prefer the coloring of the font on the truck on the NPS. Now here are some comparisons with Astia and Ektachrome. I was able to capture some beautiful clouds during sunset. Overall, you can see the Astia leans more on the warmer side with magentas, while the Ektachrome was bluer. I love the silhouettes and shadows from this shot. It's hard to choose between these two, but I do like the Ektachrome more with the two shades of blue in the sky, versus the Astia feels more pastel and subtle. Ultimately, it comes down to personal preference and the mood you're trying to achieve. Even when I had it underexposed, the Astia is more of a pink and peach sunset, whereas the Ektachrome was blue and orange. Ektachrome leaned more cool in the midtones and shadows as well. While I like the sky of Ektachrome, the green and red from Astia looks way better to me. Here the colors are much more subtle, but you can see the Astia has those pastel pinks, whereas Ektachrome has pink, blues, and purple. I prefer the Ektachrome for this shot because it adds more light and color contrast. But I also like the pastel look of Astia. Both films can look great, but it depends on the look and mood you're going for. Now I'll share some examples of Astia compared to Velvia. Here the buildings mostly look the same, but the foreground and sky are wildly different, with rich greens and pink and purple skies on the Velvia. As you can see, there's more dynamic range with the Astia. The building exposure looks the same for Astia and Velvia, but the shadows drop off faster on Velvia. Here I may have slightly underexposed the Velvia, but it could also be due to the narrower dynamic range. I like both of them for different reasons. The Astia is good to look at the tree line, but the Velvia, the blue becomes the subject. Here you can see a good difference in how Astia is softer than Velvia's color and saturation. I like how both turned out, and depending on your taste, you might like the softer, less intense Astia. Here's an example where the colors looked fairly similar, but you can see how the dynamic range of Velvia is lower and the shadows got darker quicker. And overall, Astia looks warmer in the midtones compared to Velvia. I only have 2 photos to share, but here is a look at Astia versus Ektar. Here you can see the blues of Astia are slightly deeper than Ektar. The reds also feel somewhat richer. Overall, it seemed like there was some good color parity between these 2 films, for reds, greens, yellows, and blues. I wish I had shot more of these 2 films side by side. Hey, so thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And let me know what you think about showing more detailed shots of the slides on the light table. I may do more videos like this, showing like slide film and even negatives too. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.